Very cool. I actually like that a lot. Spitfire, Abbey Road, Flutes and Clarinets. These have come out. They started at pretty high prices. The prices will probably continue to go down over the next decade or so if their pricing model is anything to show for it. But are they overpriced, or is it just cinematic magic that you have to have? And what would make it worth it for you? I mean, what do these instruments need to do to make the price point worth it for you? They're both currently A2 or A2, so they're recorded as two at once, two in unison, not solo, and you can't do any divici in the sense of two flutes playing two different notes at once. You can obviously have two flutes playing one note and two flutes playing another note, but it's a little unusual to have four flutes, and certainly if there's a whole three-note chord, a triad, that you'd have six flutes playing generally. It works maybe better in media composing. Oh, I just lost my light. This is the end of the recording. Also, what are its best recordings? What are its best qualities and what's missing? If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you probably already own a solo flute or two and some ensemble flutes, and you may have gasped at the price tag because this is a pretty high price tag, and there's no solo flute. So get ready. In this video, we're going to look at and listen to the best features, point out some downsides, so you can make best use of it if you own it, and make an informed decision if it's still on your wish list. All right, we've got both the flutes and the clarinets loaded up right now. They're both playing. They're both at the complete default settings. You're only looking at the clarinets interface here, but they're both at performance legato. The mod wheel is controlling exactly the same thing on both of them. Let's just play a little bit and see what goes. Now, the first thing that I notice is in performance legato and all the legatos at the default settings, there is no way to get a really quick transition between the first note of a phrase and the second note. And I'll show you what I mean if I play da-da-da. Pretty good. There's this deliberate da-da-da happening. And even that third note, you can hear there's a very deliberate change between each of them. I'm playing pretty much as quick as my fingers can go here. So there's a speed limitation, but there's a way around it. And the thing about it is that it's going to change the timing relative to your pre-delay, your MIDI pre-delay. So as you know, with legato instruments, all modern kind of advanced, trying to be fancy sample libraries have a pre-delay that you need. The legato offset here is going to change the speed responsiveness. It's going to not feel so laggy, but it's also not as expressive. And you get those really quick transitions. Whether they sound realistic or not is a different matter. They are snappy and they are very quick and responsive. So that's the way to get them. And you can put it in the middle for kind of a nice compromise. I think this is a pretty good compromise of expressiveness and responsiveness. Now, the clarinet's really, really up there. The clarinet's got a great range, so you might not actually be writing the clarinet that high. This is just the flutes. Those are just the clarinets, actually. That's as high as you get. You get that A, which is actually great. The selections did not give you such a fantastic range for the clarinet. So we've got the D here. Of course, I'm using the Pro version, which does allow for these 3 different note attack types. You've got soft note attack, and you can go soft note attack all the way into the loudest dynamic layer, which is nice. A little bit of a crossfade issue I'm hearing, but and then there's the medium attack. Again, these are 2 clarinets playing in unison, so you can hear the 2 instruments every once in a while. And then the loudest attack with the clarinets. You can even do it into a nice quiet dynamic layer. Now, why am I not using the Marcato? Because the Marcato is going to play an entire duration. Even if I let go of the key, it's going to play at a certain duration of the note, and I can't control the release. There's no mod wheel to work with. These are all velocity. Obviously, you can hold it down for longer, but if you release, you're going to get what you get. There is a release control, so you can shorten that. It's usually set at 60%. But there is still going to be a difference between that release at 60% for the Marcato patch versus the performance legato. Listen. Marcato. Performance legato. So you get nice different shorter shorts, even with the release at 60%, and the mod wheel makes a bigger difference with performance legato. All of that's the same with the flutes. Marcato is a little different. You get very quiet marcatos with very low velocities. Go back to performance legato and listen to those softer attacks. Soft attack into a high, loud dynamic level. To the medium dynamic level. So that performance patch with the Pro version and extended gives you a lot of options. I haven't even played the legato much yet, but you get a lot of different attack types, and you can move into different dynamic levels totally independently. So very nice feature, I think, to be able to have 3 different attack types moving into 3 different dynamic layers. The longs do not use velocity at all. So the longs are just going to use the mod wheel. Doesn't matter how hard I hit it. And here you get a vibrato control separately, so there's no vibrato here. Vibrato at full. So that's 6 flutes. Not usually writing chords with 6 flutes in a normal context, but it's an A2 patch, or A2 patch, so that's what you're going to get. You don't get, let's see, you don't get to move the vibrato when you're in performance legato. So I was in longs there, and I was kind of playing some legato style patches, just figures, but in performance legato you do not get to move that vibrato control at all. Kind of an interesting choice. Obviously you've got a little bit of a trade-off. So let's just listen. I'm going to move it to the bottom, move back to lungs, move vibrato down all the way, just so that we can be clear that this is the performance legato patch. Now there are 4 different types of legato transitions that it's moving between. There's the runs legato, which is fabulous for very quick transitions. Even when you're just in the course of regular music, you don't have to reserve runs. If you want to be very specific, you don't have to reserve it for a run. You can use it in a melody. But you have to stay within a minor third. So it's very interesting. The runs, legato runs, will do a minor second. And you can do it even differently than the trill, because if you move that legato offset all the way up, like we discussed before, you can do kind of your own little trill that changes from the first to the second note immediately. That doesn't happen on the trills patch. In the trills patch, when you do that minor second, it goes da dee da dee da. It's just a little bit holds on that first do dee da dee da. Some of them are a little bit quicker. That's one that da dee da da da. Let's go to major second. So if you didn't want that kind of like da dee da da, that little hold on the first note, then you'd have to move over to something like the runs and do them individually in different tracks. It doesn't quite sound like a trill exactly the same. But they only go up to the minor third. If I play two notes at a major third, there's no sound for the second note. Nothing. Kind of an interesting choice. If you wanted that transition, you'd want to probably move to something like a legato allegro. Legato slurred probably wouldn't be the right choice for a really quick transition like that unless you want it to sound blurry. Again, we're in legato slurred with the legato offset as fast as it goes. So we're kind of smearing them as much as we can. Legato lyrical, here's the quickest. We're all kind of in the mezzo forte range here. So legato lyrical, I think it's really designed for more slower passages, so you might want to use it for something more like it's turn the legato offset back down, use it for those lyrical passages instead. I'm going to turn it back up and just see how it sounds in, oh, we already did performance legato. Might as well just listen to those same kind of transitions with the legato offset all the way back to the slowest. So lyrical again, I think I did a little bit of this, but... I mean, pretty good transitions between the dynamic layers. It's a little harder when it comes to the solo instruments and sampling than it is with a A2 or A2 patch here. The slurred legato, and again, you can't change the vibrato when you're in these legato transition types. It's one vibrato when you're doing legato. That very difficult task of being loud and low on a flute. Really really well pulled off, well executed. I think this is a beautiful kind of loudest dynamic layer, low range flute. Beautiful sound, I think. So that's all slurred. I'm playing lyrical things for a slurred patch. This is what the legato lyrical sounds like. Legato allegro is probably the most kind of normal, useful, regular transition type. Let's do something similar for the clarinets and just sort of walk through some of the different legato types. I'll leave it on performance legato and let it pick the different types. They're very similar in nature, and I'll just play different speeds of transitions, and you can hear at different dynamic levels and different parts of the range. I'll stop there. They made an interesting choice with the vibrato on clarinets. Typically, people will say that clarinets wouldn't be playing with vibrato here. So it's an interesting choice to only allow vibrato. But obviously, you can take the vibrato with longs. But if you want those legato transitions, you're going to get some vibrato here. You can get quiet at the top of the range, which is difficult to pull off. Really impressive range on the clarinets. I mean, I'm kind of coming from the selections and the orchestral foundations where they limited the range quite a bit. So it's just I'm just happy to hear the higher range in the clarinets. Let's listen to those low vibrato or less vibrato or no vibrato longs. Make sure that it's on no vibrato here. Yeah. Again, I can't pick the note attack from the velocity anymore. I have to use the mod wheel to pick the note attack. There aren't any swells, so you'll have to build your own swells if you want that kind of growth sound. We played with the Marcatos a little bit, but I wanted to go into some of the shorts and show how consistent the flutes and the clarinet sound together across each of these 4 different types of shorts. I'm going to skip Marcato and move over to the tenuto and listen for the consistency as well as the balance across the dynamic ranges and the pitch ranges for each of these. Of course, we're going to start low, so only the clarinets will sound, but this is the short staccato. Actually, let's start with staccatissimo. I'll make sure I've got staccatissimo in the flutes. It's just going to be velocity. So that's where the flutes came in. At this point, I'd probably pull the clarinets out. Now, I wanted to comment on the beautiful breathy quality of the flutes because they just sound really gorgeous to me. And you really get this is mix 1. Everything we've done so far is mix 1. And that beautiful breathy quality is something that's really hard for me to mix. I had to pull out the fundamental if I was using other flute packages to kind of approximate that and actually raise the highs somewhere sort of top shelf kind of range to get that of the breath as well as a less pronounced fundamental. And it's true in the longs as well. So there's this beautiful quality about them that I like that's close and far at the same time. The reverb's at 0. The release is at the default of 60%. I can make the release shorter, but it begins to sound a little unnatural, meaning it sounds like the sound's being clamped off or the envelope's being closed. Kind of like they're in a big room and then all of a sudden they're in a smaller room. So it's a little confusing. That's why I leave it at 60. The reverb added will give it a little bit more space. Even with all that reverb at 100%, it sounds close yet far. It's a really great mix 1. I'm probably not going to do a bunch of mics just yet. You get 16, I think, different mic positions in the Pro, which is a ton. I just want to focus on the articulations. I want to get through kind of the articulations and kind of some of the gotchas that I experienced before I move away from mix one. I just had a hard time replicating that mix one tonality, the combination of the players, the room, the technique, everything about it is really gorgeous and a little difficult to make it sound that good in isolation. I guess the only concern I had, which would have to be proven out through using them in a larger context, is do they disappear in a larger mix? Because losing that fundamental or not having that strong fundamental in the flute could make them just become a little bit more transparent and almost hard to hear. That would be my only concern, is that they almost disappear a little bit in a big group with that beautiful breathy close distant quality. I was going to do all of the shorts. So those were staccatos, and then I kind of drifted away. From the staccatissimos, the staccatos are next in line. They're not in the order of length in the default layout. So it goes staccatissimos at the shortest, of course, then staccato alt, then I think tenuto, which is on the next page. Then you go back to Marcato, I think. I think that's the route it goes. So staccato, let's go staccato for both. Again, listen to how consistent both the flutes and the clarinets are together, and how the balance kind of transitions nicely from the clarinets into the flutes as you go up the range. There's the flutes coming in. I love just I love it that the clarinets get quieter up in this part of the range when you play quietly and the flutes start to emerge. But when you play loudly, the clarinets just dominate. It's a little thing, but it's just nice that they got the balance in a very musical way, in a very, I think, expressive way. It kind of makes me excited to hear the rest of the group of instruments, all the other sections. Now we're getting up to the part where clarinet can get a little squeaky. So we'll take the clarinets out. And with that in your mind, let's move straight to staccato alt. It's just a touch longer. Even if I let go of the key, it's just a touch longer, and it's going to play for that full duration if you're not in performance legato. So it's just a different approach to staccato, which is a little longer staccato. Bring the clarinets back in here. So I just like the balance and the range, and these staccatos are just a little longer. Then we move to tenutos, and do the same thing, just various dynamic levels, just a little longer here. This is probably where I'd pull the clarinets out. Here's Marcato. Again, these are totally velocity, no mod wheel, and they'll play all the way through, even if you let the key go. So that takes care of most of those velocity triggered shorts. Let's do the long sforzandos. So there's 2 round robins. You can always check the number of round robins right down here. And just remember, yeah, there's no velocity. No matter what I do with velocity, it's just going to cycle through the 2 round robins with the mod wheel as the main decider. And I don't know that they are multi-sampled, but hearing them at different mod wheel levels, basically different loudnesses, just kind of make your ear hear different parts of them just slightly, if you know what I mean. When you do the sforzandos at the louder clarinet dynamic layers, it doesn't do quite as much. The reed doesn't get crazy here. It doesn't really sound that much of an extended technique anymore. It's just a really accented note. Those were clarinets only, and I'll do a couple things that I would expect this patch to be used for. If I wanted it to release faster, I'd have to pull this release down. Oh, still didn't release very tight. Didn't get quite a big, big crescendo into like a stop. That's about as stoppy as it gets. I wonder what the whole notes sound like for that, the longs. Well, I think this might be a bug. 1229 is the version I'm in. They'll probably fix it eventually, but the release is all the way down on the clarinets and the reverb is all the way up, and I don't hear reverb. There's no ambient tail. What I do hear is added volume. So reverb is all the way up. Reverb is all the way down. Nothing else changed. So it's like it's adding something that's supposed to be reverb, but it's not a reverb tail. I'm sure they'll fix that eventually. We've done most of the first page, and we've started to get into the second page with the tenutos, but we haven't tried any of the double, triple, quad tongues. So let's start with the flutes, I think. By the way, the reverb does work for the flutes. It's all velocity based, so the mod wheel doesn't do anything with double, triple, quad tongues. Triple. Quad. And if they sound a little quiet to you, they sound a little quiet to me too. I don't think that you might have to gain them a little bit with the volume controls. To show you what I mean, I'll just go back to the performance legato. That's as loud as I can get with the performance legato, and then you move to the quad tongues and it's not bad, but you might just want to volume gain it a little bit. Let's switch to the clarinets and just do the double, triple, quad tonguing. It doesn't look like there's round robins either. So if you look down here and you'll see there's basically no round robins. It's just a one that can't be changed. But I'm checking for consistency in terms of the timing, and everywhere that I've played generally just sounds perfect. Often when you get sample packages that don't have a lot of really good performing, recording in QA, then these will start getting a little drifty and scattery, but they're pretty much all together. And if there are differences, it might be my playing, because there's no sequence playing here. God, I would have not enjoyed having to play these over and over if I was the clarinetist. Really good practice, though. Real quickly, the long flutters. These are probably mod wheels. Maybe even shorter on the release. I don't think it's affecting the release. Do you hear it changing? I don't think I'm hearing it change. We don't want to hear that flutter at the top, do we? Okay, we do. Let's just... Very cool. I actually like that a lot. Okay, I like that. um, let's see. Trill minor second. So we sort of did the trills, but let's just play them together. Let's see what they sound like together. going to take the clarinets out. Major second. That's a lot of woodwinds right there, playing at once. So in practice, you might not be arranging orchestra, doing it this way, because you might have the clarinets playing one of those notes, switching to another one of those notes, with two of the clarinets doing that, and then the flute's doing a different one, because they're, if this is all you've got to work with, because they're a due or a two. So you just let the clarinets do one of those notes and the flutes do the other. We've got four flutes and four clarinets, so 8 instrumentalists playing every time I play 2 notes. Minor thirds. I mean, you get the idea, but I'll play a few minor thirds. I like that the balance is preserved still all the way through. So the flutes feel like they're dominating at the quietest, and the clarinets are really, really not there. They're there, but they're not as pronounced as when we get louder, the clarinets start jumping in. What haven't we done? I didn't do some of the core articulations. You don't get the multi-attack options with velocity or dynamic mod wheel. And obviously you get only mix 1, which is what we've been listening to this entire time. I think that's probably enough for this video. I would like to bring up again the legato offset. When you're working in legato, is going to move where the notes sound in relation to the MIDI note on event. So you can have a MIDI note on, and then the transitions are going to happen later when the legato offset is toward the 0% or toward the bottom. And quicker, like right when the MIDI note changes, you're going to get the legato transition when it's at full, it's fastest. Probably the most important takeaway, because it completely messes with the sense of staying together on the grid with a tempo map and using a MIDI pre-delay. You've already set your pre-delay, you've already got your tempo map, you're aligning things to the grid in one workflow. And as soon as you move that legato offset, well, now they're sounding in a different time relative to your grid, even with your pre-delay. And I find it interesting that they chose to make it variable. You know, it's not like Cinematic Studio where, you know, there's very clear quantized jumps. You know, it's this 100 milliseconds, that 100 milliseconds, this 100 milliseconds. You know, there's like 3 modes of the transition time, and here you can make them anything. And that it messed me up in a previous video when I was my very first roof orchestral foundations, Abbey Road orchestral foundations. You know, I did this John Williams mock-up. It was my first John Williams mock-up, and the flutes, the woodwinds just were way out of time during one section, and I wrote a little comment. I knew it was wrong. I wrote a little comment, you know, like maybe my tempo map got screwed up, kind of knowing that's not right. And I am curious about the philosophy here from Spitfire. It gives you the flexibility, but then you have to spend time to go back and fix things if you take advantage of it. And you have to figure out how many milliseconds. I mean, I'm sure the manual tells you how long the legato offset is at 100% and at 0%. But what about at 27%? You'd have to do math, and you'd have to not use it if you don't want to do the math. So I think that's one of the most important takeaways for me, because I like being able to, you know, do these really quick. I'll put them both at legato offset 100%, extended, so I've got the different note attacks. And I think I did this at the very beginning of the video, but if you skip to this point and you wanted to hear the wrap up. It's really quick and responsive. It doesn't have the most elaborate, expressive legato transitions, but you've specifically asked them to go faster, like whip through them to go really fast. You know, it works really well. But then as soon as you want to change to something more expressive, you have to pull the legato offset down. Like that's as fast as they're going to go. And it's not bad, it's just like that's as fast as they're going to get. You know, it's just going to sound more deliberate to get that long legato transition off. So if you want that for this section, right? Great. But as soon as you want it to go faster, you have to change the legato, automate the legato to be faster, and mess up your grid. We didn't talk about the tightness control because that's another thing that I messed up and I automated in the same thing. I was also messing up, and it might have been only the tightness. Maybe it wasn't legato offset, because I don't know if they had legato and orchestra foundations. Actually, it probably was the tightness that I was messing with. Same set of challenges. You mess with the tightness, and you're going to get different timings. You actually can't hear it when I'm playing freely, but if I were to put it in a sequence, and this is probably for another video, that tightness is actually going to make the note start at a different time. Actually, a lot of the things I said for the legato offset just now are probably the tightness control when you get to orchestral foundations. Yeah, I apologize. It was the tightness control in orchestral foundations. But it's the same set of challenges, is that it moves where they are on the grid. And you just have to figure out how you're going to deal with that. If you want the benefit of a tighter, more responsive, more immediate transition or start time, then you automate it. But then you have to decide, you have to start listening and moving everything and getting into a lot of intricate moving, wiggling your MIDI around. There are a couple things that are missing. I think that there's a spot between the loudest and softest attacks that could be missing in a few places, but there's a pretty wide range if you go from the extended professional versions, which have those very soft attacks, to the sforzando attacks. It's a pretty good range. It's just that if you were comparing these or contrasting these with modeled instruments, there's going to be a little bit of a difference with modeled instruments. Modeled instruments are going to have more of an infinite range of attack types. I also wanted to point out Simon Rhodes' mixing is just amazing on Mix 1. So even if you get the core version, you're getting an amazing sounding set of instruments. I just think they sound really good. I do point out at one point in the video that I'm a little concerned that the flutes could get a little lost in the mix, because they do have that kind of breathiness, but they're a little close too. So I think that a little volume automation could help them really stand out if they get a little lost in a dense mix. My videos never tell you whether to buy something or not. You really have to decide for yourself based on everything you've seen and heard, whether or not this makes sense for you and your budget today. I just want to help you make the best use of it and make the most informed decision. Okay, so with all of that, really appreciate you taking the time to click the video. If you want to support the channel, I think clicking an ad helps more than subscribing. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm still figuring out YouTube. I added a Buy Me a Coffee link somewhere, so you might want to look for that. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good time, and cheers. Make some good music.